It's their first cup fight.
Stop it right now. The honeymoon phase. I'm literally gonna hurt you.
That was not me.
Yeah. Thanks for starting that though. I'm just letting you know now. I'm just gonna come back to haunt you.
When they date.
All right.
Y'all make some good
What's taking so long?
Room full of lots of honor society students. If anyone needs volunteer hours, junior Monarch basketball needs help this weekend with concessions. Text 402-609-0481.
Oh my God,
Interested.
someone please text him
It's
if you can.
Saturday and Sunday.
If y'all don't have hours by now, Craigslist and ball pocket.
Hey,
I don't need that judgment. I feel personally attacked. I'm kidding. My hours are done. I'm over hours. I'm just playing.
All right. The number of firms in the market may not be optimal due to the external effects from new firms coming in with that whole, ooh, look, profit to be made, enter the market kind of thing that goes on. Okay. Consumers get benefits from new products being introduced into the market, but firms that are already in the market incur losses when more new firms come in because the new firms take some of their business away from them. So there are definite pluses and minuses to the entry of new firms into the market. So we get an increase in consumer surplus, we get a decrease in producer surplus. Overall, total surplus should increase with the entry of new firms into the market.
I'm just waiting for Greg to say
Where you going?
Are you?
He's going to the. I'm going to the.
your damn business. Do you want Sharon?
Gynecologist.
All right, the inefficiencies of monopolistic competition are pretty subtle. They're hard to quantify. We know that they exist intuitively. We know that they exist because we can put a finger on them from time to time. But systemically, you can't really say they're this bad at this instance, and you certainly can't make generalizations over the market over long-term situations. You just know that it's not as efficient as perfect competition would be, but it's still not as bad as pure monopoly. Okay. So monopolistic competition bad, but not awful. All right. Practice time. Woo. Q didn't even notice because he's on his phone.
Wow. Wow.
Should firms be? Why are you not coming to the game tonight?
That's what I'm doing. I'm setting up practice.
Should firms be spending money to advertise their products in a pure monopoly?
No.
I got one woman's opinion and another grunter over here. Should firms be spending money to advertise in a pure monopoly?
No one knows better than our.
No, because they don't have another product to buy. If it's a pure
They
monopoly,
don't
there's
know
no
it's completely
close
unique,
substitute.
but you don't know about it. Are you gonna buy it?
If it's electricity, you're gonna have to buy it anyways, aren't you?
If
there's no close
Don't
substitute.
say timeout. They don't have
It's a
time
new
out.
product.
It depends on the product.
Well, yeah.
How about in perfect competition? Should we be spending?
Probably.
Gotta make yourself seem better.
The products are identical, folks.
Then you have to sell
But
the
if
brand
you
from the
convince the
product.
consumer that they're not
Exactly.
Or sell the brand, not just
But
product.
they are identical.
But they don't know that. But the consumer doesn't know that.
Okay, how about in monopolistic competition?
Definitely. Too. So why
Yeah,
you're slightly unique, this is better than somebody else is slightly unique.
especially if you're not identical.
You want your sports drink to make the athlete look bigger, stronger, faster, better than the other sports drink?
Yes.
Exactly.
It'll make you sweat radioactive sweat.
I already do.
Love those commercials. makes you jump higher, throw farther,
worked out.
Like with Jordan shoes.
run faster. Yeah.
Jordan shoes make you run faster.
Jordan's Nikes are better than anybody else's Nikes. They make you shoot 40% from the field.
Oh, you're really pissing me off, Davis.
Okay. All right. Is advertising good or bad from society's point of view?
They-
Society.
They think it's bad.
Advertising good or bad?
They think it's bad because they're brainwashed as a consumer, so they're purchasing something.
Come on, sheeple. Do you like advertising or not?
It interrupts my TV.
If you never had any advertising, you wouldn't really realize.
Unless it's funny.
Advertising bad.
If I want something, I'll just
Give me a pro for advertising.
You get to learn about new products.
Yeah,
You
like
have
if
to
you
read
didn't
it.
know about something before, like sometimes you see commercials you're actually like, wow, I actually want to buy that.
The idea of
And then
like,
Listen to me,
How did I live without the new introduction of it?
well, like, or even it just makes you a better person or makes you look prettier, like maybe
Oxy
advertising
plays
makes you
here.
a better person or prettier after you
I
buy
bet you guys would.
Chad here, sham, wow.
Stop.
Joe.
Joe!
It's 8% to go.
Oh, you got way more facial hair than Joe will ever have.
Current show you watch.
Oh.
What do you say?
Anticipation for the next episode of the show you're watching.
No, it doesn't create anticipation, it makes me mad. It gets my mind.
Yeah, there's like 5 minutes.
Oh, okay, so the cons of I wish I could just watch my show, except, folks, how would your show get paid for without advertising?
I was gonna
How would
say
they afford the cost of production?
Pandora's
Free
free with that. You
As
get free
consumers, we don't
Pandora.
care about that.
Free Pandora because it's advertising.
How would YouTubers get paid?
Stop.
Alright,
Sponsored ads.
you are correct about monopolistic competition making advertising absolutely necessary. Could we say, in loose terms, that the television industry is full of monopolistic competition?
Yes.
That within certain show segments, they're virtually, game show's a game show, an hour drama is an hour drama, dramedy is a dramedy.
There is nothing like
Okay? The more differentiated the products, the more advertising the companies buy. Now, from an abstract point of view, can we say that outside of the chemical formula, there's not a whole lot of difference between Coke and Pepsi?
There's a humongous difference.
They're not that different.
They're that different.
I can definitely interchange them.
How about Sprite and 7-Up?
There you
Oh,
go.
those are
Yeah,
really
definitely.
close.
Those are
pretty close.
Sprite and 7
No,
are
look,
good. The new Mist Twist.
Gatorade and Powerade?
There's a
There's
difference.
a difference.
Whatever LeBron.
I'm a Powerade guy.
Oh, the Sprite 6 mix?
Yeah.
I gotta think.
Hey Davis, shut up.
Maybe like Starburst and Bomb.
Qdoba and Chipotle.
Qdoba is way better.
Yeah, don't even.
But they're basically the same thing.
Except for one of them.
It's really like Taco Bell and Taco John's.
One of them serves
Whoa. Now we're crossing lines here. Taco John's got the
That's a good one. That's a good
ways
one.
though.
Economists disagree as much as you guys do. But economists disagree about the value of advertising. They disagree about its social value for sure. Right when I'm about to lead on
Just
to a
hit
good thing and then it
Just
doesn't.
hit it.
If you bang against the table, I'm gonna pump it. It'll work.
So what he says?
One time I fished my hell.
Okay.
Just kicked it.
The economists who don't like advertising say it is a waste of resources. The money, the labor, the time,
It just wasn't.
the resources in general that are spent on advertising are a waste. There is no improvement of social welfare from advertisement. That's what these economists are saying. Nobody's better off because of a Christian Dior ad.
Doesn't it help against specific?
I really don't like these economists.
They think that the firms are trying to manipulate people's tastes.
That's exactly what they're.
I'm telling you what these economists are doing, right? They say that advertising actually impedes competition. And I know that you're sitting there thinking, no, it furthers the competition because the advertising is just an extension of that competition, right? It creates the perception that the products are more differentiated than they actually are. Those who defend advertising say no, it informs the consumer. The uneducated, uninformed, unaware consumer is enlightened by our advertising. They're better off. Thus, welfare is enhanced. Informed buyers can more easily find and exploit price advantages, the sales. Except that if you're truly an informed buyer and you miss that sale, what do you have to do? Wait about a week. Right? Get another sale. Okay? So they say advertising actually promotes competition and improves market power for the consumer. Reduces market power of the producer. There was a significant study done that said that in the states where advertising by eyeglass manufacturers is prohibited, eyeglass prices were actually far higher than in states where it was allowed.
Because people can't see the comparison.
Because you can't see the comparison, you would have to actually go to that store and go to that
And then
store
once
and
they've
go
got
to
you in the
that
store,
store. And people don't have the time to do that.
it's not convenient. They physically
Yeah.
can't see the difference.
But
Chief with your special eyes.
did you hear that?
No, please don't.
Oh no, it was good.
No, I like
Anna said they just can't see the difference.
Alright, Kirby said that first.
Kirby said that
Oh!
first.
Kirby said that first.
Oh, by the way, guys, Hannah was fighting for you. I said I was having trouble getting motivated to write your final. She encouraged me to make the final short and sweet.
Two questions.
So I've been thinking on that,
Oh,
So,
and I thought maybe 4 questions at 50 points each. Sure.
Yes. No.
I'd rather.
that's okay.
10 questions at 20 points each?
No.
Yes.
So what happens?
There's like 500 questions at 0.5.
Hannah, you tried. You tried.
Cameron, you're gonna be okay with 10.
If we just, no, I wish it was like 4 essay topics,
Yeah.
and like
I'm
we
okay
knew
with
the
it.
topics ahead of time, we could just study. And I know it's study.
There is a belief. There is a belief that the more money a firm spends on advertising its product, the higher the quality of the product, regardless of the content of the ad.
It's not true, look at Chevy.
Oh.
Look at Ford.
You might want to check yourself there, Jared. I think your bias is showing.
Look at Ford. Are you kidding me?
I think you're fired.
Right. An ad may convince a consumer to buy a product once, but if it's not high enough quality, if the satisfaction isn't there, then they're not going to produce repeat buyers. So that advertising needs to be advertising a quality enough product to produce sustained repeat consumption. The most expensive ads aren't worthwhile unless they create repeat buyers, which leads us to think about, not necessarily discuss, but think about Super Bowl ads.
Super Bowl.
Think about what I just said. Don't just think about Super Bowl ads in the abstract. Think about, those are the most expensive ads on television. Do they lead to repeat buyers?
I think some of them are horrible. No one wants to cut for it.
Consumers, aka sheeple, are fairly easily influenced. And you think, as a consumer, when you see an expensive ad, that the product that it's advertising must be high quality if they're willing to spend so much money on the ad.
It's like Lincoln, huh?
Doritos.
Lincoln car. Mercedes.
Well, I think that is
Yeah,
If they have the money.
Alright,
Oh, yes.
He's just chilling in the backseat.
let's go back to our grocery store where we're in the aisle and we've got Del Monte and Green Giant and Market Fresh. We've got brand name and generic side by side. The brand name companies spend money on advertising. The generic companies in general do not. You're not going to see a Market Fresh ad on primetime television. You see it advertised in the store circular, but you're not going to see it on prime time.
Because people show up to buy.
Now here's the thing. Is the content of the can, whether it's Del Monte or Green Giant or Market Fresh, are the kernels of corn in the can different?
Not very much.
In many instances, the generic brand, the store brand, is manufactured and canned in the exact same factory. They simply run it through a different labeling line. And so you, by purchasing the brand name, are paying for the advertising because they're charging you a higher price for the brand name. Those who criticize brand names think that they encourage you to believe that a difference exists where there really isn't one. They think that your willingness to pay for that Del Monte Golden Nib kernel corn is irrational because it's the same thing in the can. But you're trained to think that by the exposure to the advertising. So they say, if we eliminated the protection of the trademarks, we got rid of Jolly Green Giant. If we got rid of Del Monte, if we eliminated that trademark protection, we'd eliminate that incentive to advertise, that incentive to overcharge for the same product, and could increase consumer welfare. If you are of a pro-business mind, you are horrified at this line of reasoning.
Would this just be in grocery stores, or would this be all across the board?
Like, be all across the board. Those who defend brand names, the other side of the argument, say, no. The brand name signifies to the consumer that that is a quality piece of good because it is associated with that brand name. You know when you put on a Fruit of the Loom pair of underwear, you're wearing Fruit of the Loom.
Yeah.
And you've got all of those men in fruit costumes backing up the quality of your drawers.
I don't agree.
That's why you need to lose.
Wasn't that?
Here's a big argument. This one's a big argument. Because you have the brand name to protect as the manufacturer of Fruit of the Loom, your quality checks, your input choices are more careful because you are protecting the legacy of that name and its reputation with the consumers. And you're not going to put holy underwear out there for consumers to buy. You're not going to put underwear out that disintegrates after the third wash.
What do some people want less underwear?
Okay.
What about like small, high quality good businesses? Like leather goods, you know what I'm saying? Like a little tiny one.
Yeah.
They can't afford
What about 'em?
advertising.
Like
Like they don't advertise.
Oh, okay. So how do they get their business?
They're like the only ones.
Word of
Their
mouth,
goods are
which
so-
is a form of advertising.
They're just
And guys, this was done. This chapter in this book, this edition of this book, were written before the full explosion and impact of social media and social media marketing, and Facebook ads and Google analytics and stuff. And that's really changed the face of advertising as an industry. I was talking to an ad exec a couple of months ago, and he said that 90% of the coursework that he did in college 15 years ago doesn't apply at all anymore because of how social media and the internet have completely changed the way that you can individually target, that you can target sectors, that you can target regions, age groups, genders, racial, cultural, income strata, everything. We are the targets of such specific marketing now that he said that there is a possibility as Hulu's and all of the other alternatives to cable come through, that we may see the absolute demise of broadcast advertising.
So no commercials.
He said that it's not inconceivable that sometime in the next 20 years, that industry dies.
But how's that gonna go with coordinated trial?
And so there we go. I don't know.
No.
I don't know.
I'm right.
Yeah, if my Hulu's gonna cost me $9.99 a month, but then now my internet's 3 times as expensive, cable looks cheap as an alternative. Is that what you're saying? Okay. All right. So, in the end, our products are differentiated. Monopolistic competition is the norm. It is the prevalent form of competition in our economy. When we look at monopolistic competition, you can't look at it economy-wide. You have to look at it in terms of market sectors. You have to look at it in terms of men's apparel and women's apparel and ready-to-eat and unprepped and consumer goods and appliances and all of the different sectors that exist within the economy and the micro sectors that exist within those larger sectors. Monopolistic competition doesn't exist on an economy-wide basis, but it is the reality. So we started with perfect competition, easy entry, easy exit, no differentiation of products, most efficient, best consumer and producer surplus. We looked then at monopoly, very hard to get in, hard to get out, massive market power for the producer, the consumer is at the mercy, essentially. And then we look at the reality of the monopolistic competition and how there's more power in the producer's hands, but the consumers have some power too. And because the consumers have some power, what do the producers do to try and take that power back? They advertise. And they try to influence your choices and manage you consciously and subconsciously. Next semester, everything's the same and everything changes. We stop talking about individual firms, individual markets, individual consumers. We talk about the global economy, we talk about national economies, and we talk about the stuff that you see more on the news in terms of unemployment and inflation and GDP and those kinds of things. It'll move fast. It'll be very interesting. It'll be very exciting. We have current events due tonight.
At
12:59.
That's Eastern time.
No,
So
it
it's
is,
what-
no, it literally is 12, like it says on the website.
I don't know why it keeps changing my time zone. I keep changing it back and it changes it again. All right.
I love this idea.
Whatever. Yes, good on you.
I didn't turn
Questions?
What's your favorite to teach, micro or macro? It's time to start it up.